Hello, I'm Zolita Grant, and I have the honor and the privilege of being the Vice President of the American Council of Hypnotist Examiners. And I'm here today to talk to you about the legal and ethical issues that face members of our profession. The difference between law and ethics is really the difference between what legally you can do according to the laws of the country, the province, or the state that you live in. And ethics have to do more with moral standards and codes of behavior that really are about how it is that you should act with the world and with your clients according to the highest standards. Laws differ from state to state, and they differ vastly around the world. For instance, in the state of Colorado, unless you have coach-specific training as a hypnosis practitioner, you must register with the state and practice as a psychotherapist and call yourself a psychotherapist. In some states of the Union, it's totally illegal for you to assume any title like psychotherapist, and you are required to call yourselves hypnotists. And in some states, you can call yourself hypnotherapist. So you are responsible for finding out what those legal requirements are and practicing them according to where it is that you live. Today, I'm going to take time to go through the ACHE Code of Ethics, to take a look at the ethics that are in the code and how specifically they affect you in your interactions with your clients and with the general public. Just like the ACHE as an organization has always stood for the highest level of standards in training, we also stand for the highest level in ethical conduct. To be able to say that you are an ACHE member means that you have signed an agreement to behave by this code of ethics. So now we're going to take the time to look at exactly what is in the code of ethics and to talk about how it is that this affects you in how you practice. You have these in your download, so please get them so we can look at them together. I also wanted to mention that after this live streaming, I will be available to answer questions, and that those questions and answers will later be posted with this video so you can go back and look at them again. So number one is, I regard as my primary obligation the welfare of my client, whether an individual or a group. What this means specifically is that in your interaction with your client, you always have to look at the best interests of the client. And because of that, there are certain activities like going into business with your client, dating your client, or borrowing money from your client that are considered to be unethical elements of behavior, just because of the fact that they are not holding the primary welfare in the client in your interest. The second one is, I will comply with the requirements of law in the jurisdiction where I practice, including requirements with regards to dealing with clients in relationship to race, religion, age, and gender status. In the United States, that means compliance to the civil rights laws, that we don't discriminate against people because of any of the preferences that they've made as far as gender orientation or religion. We don't discriminate against people because of their race or their age. We operate as professionals to the best of our ability with every client that enters our practice. The third one is, I will offer services only within the scope of my practice and boundaries of competency and the recognized knowledge and competency of the professions of hypnosis and hypnotherapy and hypnotic coaching. What that means specifically is you only do what it is that you're trained to do. Just because you know people that have good relationships, that does not necessarily mean that your training gives you the ability to work with relationship issues. What we want you as professionals in the world of hypnosis is to practice only as hypnosis professionals unless you have additional training that is beyond your hypnosis certification. Number 4, and this is a very, very traditional element in codes of ethics for hypnosis practitioners. I will not claim to diagnose, prescribe, treatment for, or treat any mental or physical illness unless I possess qualifications additional to my hypnosis certifications, which legally entitle me to do so in the jurisdiction which I practice. This is so important in advertising and in marketing materials. We never on any level claim to diagnose or treat. In fact, those are considered to be the provinces of the medical professions. And when hypnosis practitioners have gotten into trouble with the law in times of the past, it has usually been around exceeding this scope of practice and saying things in advertising that appear to either diagnose or treat. We don't cure anything, and we don't claim to do so. Number 5 is I will not use any licensed or restricted titles to which I am not legally entitled in the jurisdiction where I practice. What this means is that in certain states of the Union, you have to be careful about the use of the word clinical. Even though clinical hypnosis practitioner, clinical hypnotherapist, master hypnotic coach, these are certifications that are currently given by the ACHE. But because of the requirements to practice within the scope of where it is that you live, it's important to be aware that there are some states where you're not allowed to use the word clinical. Also, there are accrediting bodies that accredit people as PhDs in hypnosis. And so the term doctor of hypnosis is a term that is acceptable in some areas, but not in others. And that's where you have to check your state laws. Usually the practice of hypnosis practitioners is governed by departments of regulatory agencies, by mental health boards, or by the Board of Psychologists. So if you check your state, you'll be able to find who it is that is your governing board. Number 6, I will advise a client whose requirements are outside my boundaries of competency to seek an appropriate alternative service. There are many times in my practice that I have worked in combination with others. One of the areas that I specialized in for many years was cancer. And I always realized that I was support staff to cancer treatment. That person needed to have medical practitioners, whether they were choosing to do complementary medicine or traditional medicine, that medical professional needed to be in place, and my services with the mind were support services. It is no shame to refer people. There are people that are a good match for you, that you feel comfortable with your skills and abilities. There are people that need more than what it is that you're trained to give. So it's important to remember that and to have 2 or 3 professionals on file that you can refer clients to that are outside of the scope of your training. Number 7, I will advise any client presenting symptoms of physical illness, including pain, to seek the advice of a medical practitioner if this has not already been obtained. Pain is a really critical area to be aware of because there are all kinds of legal and ethical ramifications around it. While it is true that we can use powerful hypnotic pain relief techniques, we should never do so unless the client has had that injury or that illness evaluated by a doctor, a chiropractor, a dentist, or another valid healthcare professional that they have chosen. Pain is often a signal that something is wrong. And if we use the power of the mind to override that signal, the client could actually have damage done to them. So when a client comes to us for hypnotic pain relief, it is always important that we begin by asking them, have they had that evaluation? And if they haven't, what we want to say to them is, I can do this one session with you to help you to feel more comfortable. But in order to do further hypnotic pain relief, I need you to have this evaluated by a healthcare professional. That ethical statement protects you and it protects your client. When clients come to you with long-standing chronic ailments, it is also important that you refer for outside help and support. When working in the area of addictions, it is always important that that client also be involved in an addiction recovery program in addition to the work that they're getting from you. You can be an incredible addition to an addiction treatment plan. But unless you have specific training in this area, it is important to realize that the client is going to need more than what it is that you can provide. Number 8, I will not guarantee cures for any condition or offer misleading claims or statement as to the outcomes for the services that I offer. Kind of key words to avoid are cure, treatment, diagnosis. Those are all things that are restrictive terms that belong to the medical profession and are considered to be unethical advertising in our profession. In reality, no one can cure anyone else. In reality, we only support health and healing in other people. And so recognizing that and stating that in a clear fashion, even when the client wants to give you the success that they're achieving, it's always a good idea to say, nope, it all belongs to you. It's your growth. It's your development. I'm only here to help and support you. Number 9, I will make clear to the client prior to the provision of services the terms, conditions, and charges for my services. As a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist, there is always intake information that you use. And that information should clearly describe what it is that you do, how much it costs, and what are the basic ideas of the length of service that the client can think about getting involved in. As a hypnotic coach, you use a contract with clients. So this is an agreement where the client is hiring you for professional service and clearly defines what the charges are for those services. Number 10, I will maintain confidentiality of information obtained during the course of providing my services within the legal limits of reporting requirements in the jurisdiction that I practice. I would disclose any limits of confidentiality to my clients prior to providing services. I will ensure that my client's anonymity and privacy is safeguarded in the publication of any materials. Confidentiality is one of the areas that we most err in, because sometimes we don't think about how important and how absolute that confidentiality needs to be. One time, a few years ago, I heard of a hypnosis practitioner who was talking about a client in a restaurant. And she was thinking that she had disguised her client by changing some of the circumstances around her. Unfortunately, her client's sister was in the next booth. And her client's sister knew the name of her client's therapist and was able to recognize her sister from the woman's discussion. Not only did this cause irreconcilable damage between the therapist and the client, it also caused ethical problems for the client when the word got out that she had broken, ethical problems for the therapist when the word got out that she had broken the confidentiality of her client. Confidentiality for hypnosis practitioners is really absolute, even if the client breaks that. I have had personal situations in my life where I've worked with people that knew each other, and sometimes my client would share with her friends something that had happened in a session, and the friend might come back and ask me questions, to which I always reply, I can neither confirm or deny that I even know this person you're talking about. And then we both laugh. But even if the clients know each other, even if they're sharing information, it's so important that we don't get involved in that experience. You know, social media is now presenting new challenges for practitioners. And there have actually been such situations where clients have become angry with practitioners and taken to social media and mentioned their grievances. If that ever happens to you, it's important that you ignore the situation. You can unfollow that person, you can unfriend that person, you can also block that person. But you never want to take the opportunity to answer back in social media anything having to do with your client, even if your client started it. Number 11, I will obtain written consent of a parent or guardian before providing services to a minor. At the end of our presentation today, I'm going to go through a release of confidentiality form and a consent form to do hypnosis with a minor. But I want to point out one additional word that I want to add to this number 11 in our Code of Ethics. I want to add the word legal parent or guardian. In this world of divorced families, it is so important that that person bringing that minor to you has legal ability to do so. When divorce decrees are granted, sometimes people are given only parental visitation rights. Sometimes people are given only the rights to make decisions about school. But if that parent is given legal rights to make decisions about things like therapy and coaching and medical kinds of issues, then it'll be written into the degree. And that's what you want the client to sign, that they have that ability to make that legal decision for their child. Number 12, I will not engage in intimate social contact with a client until a period of at least 2 years from the final session with the client. What we're essentially talking about here is dating or getting into an emotional or physical relationship with a formal client. Because of the nature of the therapeutic relationship, because of the fact that anyone that has come to you in that therapeutic relationship has a special way of relating to you, it is very important that a significant amount of time happens before you enter in to an intimate relationship. The therapeutic relationship needs to be completely broken. You and the former client need to approach each other in completely different roles, and it takes a period of time to be able to make that happen. Number 13, I will continue to undertake professional development and education in accordance with the requirements of the ACHD as updated from time to time. The ACHE currently requires 30 units of continuing education every 2 years. This class that you're taking at the ACHE virtual conference fulfills part of that requirement. And so you can, by attending this conference, attain those 30 units of continuing education. You can also attain them by taking classes. Usually comes out to about 1 class a year at preferred schools. If you need to find out what schools are accepted by the ACHE for continuing education, I want to refer you to our website, because there is a list of those schools and also schools that do specific certification training in the hypnosis professions. Another way you can get those continuing education is through watching videos and writing reports if you live in areas where it's hard to get to classes. You can also read books and again write reports on them. But there are always ways that you can attain continuing education. And we believe, as an association, that continuing education is so important for your continued professional development and expertise. Number 14, I accept the responsibility to protect the community against unethical practices by any individual engaged in providing hypnotherapy services by reporting professional misconduct to the proper boards or authorities. What that means essentially is that as a profession, we seek to police ourselves. We seek to exhibit the highest standard of conduct in our actions and in the actions of others in our profession. And when we see someone abusing the ethics of the hypnosis professions, they are actually affecting us as well as the profession. And so what this ethical requirement is that if you see this happening, please do report that person to the appropriate boards. Number 15, I treat with respect the findings, views, and actions of professional colleagues, and I use appropriate channels to express my opinions on these matters. There are many online forums, and there are many people in our profession that have strong opinions. And sometimes those strong opinions are conflicting of each other. But what we ask the members of the ACHE is to always be professional in those differences of opinion. To remember to use respect, even if people see it a different way. There are many, many techniques in the world of hypnosis that are very similar techniques, but might have slightly different names. There are many people that feel like they've invented certain kinds of techniques because they put their own twist on them. But as a profession, we build more strength in our diversity. As a profession, we have the capacity to umbrella many different aspects of hypnosis and to treat with respect those differences of opinions. Number 16, I will conduct myself in a manner consistent with upholding the good reputation of the hypnosis professions. Always get positive PR. Your positive PR in hypnosis in the state of Iowa reflects on people that practice hypnosis in Florida. So the more that we work together to really build the quality of our profession, the better it is for all of us. Number 17, I will distinguish clearly in public between my statements and actions as an individual and as a representative of the organization. What that essentially says is that when you are on those boards or forums on the internet, and you have strong opinions about different techniques and practices, we ask you to honor that those opinions come from you. We ask you to honor that those are your ideas, not the ideas necessarily of the ACHE. The ACHE is a very broad, umbrellaing organization. We accept many aspects of hypnosis. We only ask that they be done in the highest professional standards. So those are our ethics. And if you have any questions about our ethics, please bring them up in the question and answer after the live stream. Now I have 2 forms that I want to go through with you that are very important to use in your practice and really support your legal and ethical way of practicing. The first is the consent to do hypnosis with a minor. As I mentioned earlier, it is very important that the word legal be written on your form. You have a form that you can just exactly copy, just customize with your own contact information, and that form be signed and in the minor's file by the end of the second session. The second is the consent for the release of confidential information. When you talk about the release of confidential information, it's important to also talk about any exemptions to that. Now, as a therapist in the state that I live in, your confidentiality with your client is absolute except if the client tells you that they have committed murder or they plan to commit murder. If the client reveals to you that they are contemplating suicide. If the client has done abuse to either a child or a senior. All of those things are things which in the state of Colorado, therapists are required to report immediately. So when you present that release of confidentiality to the client, you explain to the client that this is a release for any information that you need to get or give to other therapists, reporting agencies, schools, many different kinds of situations. That this release of confidentiality has limited application and can be canceled by the client at any time. And that all of your work with your client is confidential except for those areas that you explain. Learning to practice in a legal and ethical way is part of developing a mature practice. You as a representative of the ACHE, you as a representative of the hypnosis professions, the way that you show up in the world says something about how the people look at our profession. In some ways, the hypnosis professions are still very young as far as public acceptance and understanding. And in a lot of ways, the public is just moving out of the idea that hypnosis is about stage entertainment or psychotherapy. And they're beginning to realize that there are many, many applications in using the power of your mind to be able to create what it is that you want in your life. So every time you work with a client, you are the representation of your profession. And you establishing those standards of legal and ethical excellence creates a legal, ethical, high standard in our entire profession. So I'm Zoilita Grant. I am the Vice President of the ACHE. I am always available through email, zoilita@zoilitagrant.net, or you can text me at 303-834-5040. Our organization is here to support the development of your practice. Thank you so much.